went and had mine cut last week, and it looks exactly the same.
You're on mute, Anne.
It's not my fault.
It's the same.
Right.
I've been robbed.
Okay.
That's
Right.
it.
So, okay. So we're gonna. Sorry. Well, obviously everybody's joined at different times tonight, so that's fine. It's good to see Pat, and Pat's got relatives. So that's why she's here tonight. Drina said she couldn't make it because Margaret really upset her last week. Roger can't make it because he doesn't like to be in the same room as me. And no word from David.
No.
Which is actually quite worrying, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Basically, he paid his money last time, and we haven't seen him since. So, I don't think David is the type of person to, pay the money for the 2 months and that not turn up. So, I don't know what's happened.
When is the next payment due? Is it September?
It's now. No. Oh my God! Hang on, stop a minute. Hang on. No, it's what date is it today? No. What date is it?
We're in August.
11th.
I know we're in August. What date is it?
The 11th.
The 11th, yes.
It's the 11th.
So it'll be due on the 1st of September, is it?
Well, you're a funny one, you are.
Well,
so
no.
you're strange. Anyway, so next week, so it'd be like the 18th next week. So technically, I won't be saying anything next week, but I will be saying probably 18. Well, actually, I should say something next week. Really, I should, because that'd be the 18th.
It's due on the 1st of September.
Yeah, but you're just confusing. Oh, technically, you're supposed to pay before the next month.
Well, I always pay on the 1st of the month.
But if I say you've got to pay on the 31st of October, right? No, you've got to pay on the 31st of the month. Okay. Then that means that some people can't pay on the 31st because it's not 31 days in a month.
But you can always guarantee that you'll get mine on the 1st of the month.
What is this? I don't know. Anyway, well done. Good. I'm glad. Good. Excellent.
So if you don't get anything from David on the 1st of September, then we'll be seriously worried, won't we?
Yeah, the thing is, I am seriously worried. It's not about the money. I am seriously worried.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
It's not like him to not be in touch or said anything.
I will. Okay, I'm going to get my diary now. I'm going to tell you how long it's been, right? So I'm going to get my diary and I will tell you. Let's have a look. Let's look at my diary. I will look at my diary now.
He might have just gone away for a month or something.
I got a little thing in. Basically, I got a little tally thing that I do every month. So every week. So David, right. David, right. So it's not done in it's not. So basically, he's missed this week. So that's 1 week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks.
Oh, are you sure?
No, it's in here. He's missed 7 weeks.
Oh gosh.
He did the week before that, and then he missed a week. Right. So technically, no, it's 7 weeks.
It could be in hospital, couldn't he?
No, seriously, I think. I've sent him a letter, right? So I think we need to think about another plan. I know it's a long way, but if somebody was able to jump on the train and go over to Grange, then that'd be good.
Okay. Yeah.
maybe if you and Anne go out for an afternoon in Grange, I don't know, but it would be nice to know. The thing is, you'll soon know if he's in hospital. I would say his garden's overgrown, but that's not going to be the case, is it, in this weather? But
he tends to contact Drina if there's anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't think Drina's heard anything.
No, she has. No, that's the point. Drina hasn't heard anything either. So.
No.
If you're in hospital, then your mind's on different things.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't know any of his relatives or if he has any
Mm.
even.
Yeah, we know that he's got a niece that comes over to help.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
He's got a brother-in-law.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to find out. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's find out what we're going to be doing tonight. I'm still waiting for a few things to come back from people, and I've got to chase that up. So we're going to be looking at comparing women in Iron Age and Roman era Britain. So,
Ooh.
Margaret, any news from you, babe?
Well, like, I suppose you've heard about the wreck off Sicily with the
Yes,
Roman ship with all the amphora
I
on
did a
board.
video on it. So yeah, there's 300 amphora found off the coast of Sicily just
Yeah,
before the birth of Christ.
yeah.
The amphora seem to be really intact.
Mm.
They seem to be mounded up. The archaeologist who, weirdly enough, it was reported in the newspaper that it was reported to the police first, and
Oh,
then the archaeologist got involved. Yeah, which
yeah,
is a strange thing of events, to be honest.
yeah.
But
Oh,
it's
and
some it's
I went to see the Odyssey
Oh,
yesterday.
hang on a minute. Right, hang on. You and I have got to have a discussion about the Odyssey, which we're not going to have at this minute, right? Because other than the Odyssey, any other news, Margaret?
I can't think of
No?
anything offhand. No.
Right, okay. Right. So what I would like to do is then ask Andy, have you got any news?
Yeah, I was watching an underwater program. It has articles on various mysteries and all the rest of it, and it came and did a little short piece on the Battle of Actium, which was
Nice.
interesting. And for those who don't remember, that's where Cleopatra and Antony brought
Against Ptolemy.
the Egyptian fleet over to wipe out the Roman fleet controlled by Octavian. The Egyptians massively outnumbered the Romans, and for some reason, the Egyptians lost. And it's been a puzzle for a long time as to why they lost. And what's his name? Pliny the Elder wrote about it, didn't he? And he said that the ships were slowed down. The Egyptian ships were slowed down and were unable to maneuver due to and he said because of remora. Now, remora, for those who don't know, are the fish that attach themselves to bigger fish like whales and sharks. Big
Oh,
sharks.
right.
They have
Yeah.
a sucker on the top of their head, and they just attach themselves to it. And that's always been a bit of a questionable thing. They do attach to ships as well, but to slow them down that much, it's pretty unlikely. And scientifically, they don't believe that. However,
Go on.
yeah, this guy came up with this theory that when you get fresh water, sometimes it sits on top of salt water, right? And the Battle of Actium is very near the coastline, where there are several rivers coming into a bay that come out onto there. So it's possible that that can happen there. And when you get friction between the two, the fresh water sits on top of the salt water. Now, and a boat comes across the top of it, and if it's if it's fairly near the surface, the friction you get a wake from a bow. You also get a wake underneath as well, right? Now, in normal water, that's not a problem, but if you've got different layers of water, it can cause a reaction with the salt water underneath, and that can actually sort it. And since 1900, there've been several cases of this actually happening, so they know it's real now. So they tested it, and sure enough, there are these layers where the battle took place, and the pattern that you get from the wake, instead of it going out from the boat, it comes back and crosses over again, which is just like the pattern on the top of the Remora's head. So they're starting to think that maybe this was it. Now, what it does is these ships, right, as they were bigger, they reckon up to 600 oars on the Egyptian ones, and they've
Wow.
scaled that up because Octavian built a temple overlooking the site where the battle was to celebrate it, and he put a 30 odd of the bronze bowsprits, the ramming bit on the front of the trireme, on it, and they scaled it up from those. There's none of them left, but the marks in the wall where they were mounted were. So they know how big those were. So they know that these Egyptian ships were massive, right? And because they were big and slow, they couldn't get away from this water catching them underneath and slowing them down. Whereas Octavian's ships were much smaller and more maneuverable and faster, so they could get away from it. So they think that that possibly slowed the Egyptian ships down enough so that Octavian, who was smart and obviously who was his admiral or whoever was in charge, realized this had happened and took advantage of that and destroyed the fleet because they could outmaneuver. I thought, oh, that's a really interesting one, because that's always been as if, how on earth did, I mean, I don't know how many 2-to-1 ratio they were, but they were much.
Oh, wait! I'm going to look at the stats now. We can't not have the stats. No. I love battle stats. So the Battle of Actium, Actium, was fought on the 2nd of September, 31 BC. So we're talking about Octavian, who would become Augustus. Versus Mark Antony, and obviously his leader was Cleopatra. And so what we've got here is a slight odd thing. Where did you say the Battle of Actium took place, Andy?
I didn't. I seem to think it was off the Greek coast, but.
Yeah, it was at the Greek coast, and I'm right in saying that it's north of the island of Zantes, Zakynthos.
Right.
Okay. It's the western coast going into the Adriatic. It's the bottom
just
part
in the
of
mouth
the
Adriatic. Yeah.
So this is a fleet there, which is a bit weird. So
yes.
So we're talking, which is a bit of a weird place to be fighting, obviously on enemy territory, because Greece was part of the Roman world at that stage. So you said that now this is rather interesting. So we've got up to 400 Roman galleys versus up to 500 Egyptian galleys. However, if you change this the other way round, and you think, well, the lower estimate of the Roman galleys was 250 and the higher estimate of the Egyptian galleys was 500, Andy might have a point. There may have been a 2-to-1 ratio. But the ancient Egyptians, because they were out of location, had transport ships for, replenishments. And this is really odd, because if you're looking at Egyptian vessels, they're talking about up to 70,000 Egyptians on these ships. So the lower estimate's 20,000, and this is odd, only 2,000 archers. That's interesting, because that means that if it's Andy, if you want to do the maths on this, if it's 2,000 archers and there's 500 ships, there's 4 archers on a ship.
I think they probably had some archery ships,
yeah, obviously, yeah. So
you'd want them on the smaller, faster ones, wouldn't you? So.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that what they're saying is that up to 5,000 individuals on the Egyptian side was killed. Yeah. Up to 2,500 on the Roman side was killed. Wow. Well, technically, when you think about it, Mark Antony's a Roman as well. So he's actually got some Roman generals and leaders with him. So it's a mixed fleet. And they're saying up to 250 ships were sunk or captured.
Yeah. I wondered now if, the chances of somebody taking advantage of a phenomena like that is very, very slim. I mean, good seamen would know about things like that. But if that was a common occurrence in that area, then I'm wondering whether that's where the battle was. And they knew that right from the start, and they were waiting for them to come into that water where the problem was and slow them down and then pounced.
You're talking a bit like Odysseus when you're talking about the sirens and
absolutely.
And like actually, do you know what? Right, forget
blown.
what we're doing tonight. We'll just talk about the film, and that's right. Yeah, that's good, Andy. I like that. Nice discussion. Right.
Did you like it when the son said, "I'm just looking for my dad"?
Oh God.
Yeah, it was an American accent. Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. But he wouldn't have said. He would have said my father. He wouldn't
Mm.
have said I just want to find my dad, would he?
No.
Hang on, stop
But the rest
pushing
of
it.
it was very good.
Okay, Christopher Nolan, he's a great director, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So, right, okay. By the
Do
way,
bear in mind that the rest of us haven't seen it yet.
Oh, right. Okay. It was very
hang on a
good.
minute. Right, okay. So the way we've got to do it is we've got to talk about how brilliant the film is, and yeah, so we'll just do it that way. Right. So do you know, it's a bit weird. I've got this yeah, I've had my 7th award last week for my film work, and it's just like
Good,
I've
well
got these
done.
films that I've produced, and it's like people are saying, "Well, I've never seen it," and I say, "Well, you know, it's not been released yet." Oh, never mind.
That's
Anyway,
more than I got.
what did you get, Andy?
I got awards for some animation.
Oh, well done,
Got it screened at festivals
well done.
a long, long time ago.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Andy, one award is good enough. So, right.
I
So,
got
Anne,
one
anything?
for swimming once.
Well done.
Hang on. Who asked you?
And I got
Right.
one for tap dancing. Does it?
All right.
Ooh, that counts. Yeah.
I got a degree in origami. Right, Anne. Anything you want to say, love?
No, not to speak. Thank you.
What about you, Pat?
No, I'm blank.
I got to say it right. Every time, right. There's this Mormon woman who comes on my adverts on my YouTube channel, right? Who sounds exactly like Pat.
Oh no.
Oh,
And
are you
she
sure
she
it's not Pat?
Yeah, well, Pat could be a Mormon, I guess, you know. Right. Anyway, talking about Mormons, Will, you could make a good Mormon.
Yeah, right. Nothing from me though. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Right, Judith.
You'll be surprised to learn that
Any-
I also have nothing.
Oh,
I know,
You
just
can't-
for once.
You can't have nothing to say, darling.
I'm afraid so.
Okay. Right, I'm gonna finally ask. Wonderful. Have we done everyone now?
you haven't asked Pat or Anne.
We have asked Pat.
We did ask
Yeah,
me.
haven't done Anne yet.
No, you haven't asked Anne.
But Anne's got to have some news. So, Anne,
you did ask me, and I said I answered him. I hadn't got any.
So, who is actually listening to what I'm saying?
We all are. We're on
All
the
right,
edge of our seats right now.
Pardon?
All right. Okay. Well, there's been some sub research going on, and I've just got to make sure I've got my right page in the book here. Here we go. Inscriptions. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. I've got it. Right. Excellent. I've got this book here about some Roman place names from the Cumbria Library, and
Ah.
so it's a rather interesting book, and I was just flicking through it as you do, and there was something that was really, really interesting cropped up. So I'm just going to get this right. So what it was, the question I asked of some of the guys on Wednesday was as follows. You have, oh, right, hang on. All right. It's not an email, but basically it said, right. I got to work out where the bloody question is. Hang on. Got to get the question. I got to get the context. Henry. And it goes, right, I'm gonna have to ad lib. So basically, I asked them, do you have the research skills to find some specific references of a Roman site in Wales that is referred to as Bovium or Bomium, right? And I've said, I want you to find some inscriptions associated with this site Bovium or Bomium, which is in Wales, right? And I also typed this into the search bar, right? And I had the answer in the book. And the book tells me that there are inscriptions out in regards to this site Bovium, right? They've been found in the archaeology, right? And I've got it in front of me, and it's associated with 1966. So I said, can you find these references on the internet, right? And the research that came back through from Henry was as follows. The Roman tile production site at Holt, traditionally identified with Bovium, is directly linked through military ceramic stamps to the Legio 20th Valia Vitrix Legion, which manufactured extensive roofing tiles and bricks stamped with their legionary badge. Now, I was not looking for that site at all, but it was interesting because having a Bovium in North Wales as much as you've got one in South Wales, so that was a nice bit of research. So the Holt tile works, i.e. Holt, we mentioned that there's Roman pottery being found at Holt, which is in North Wales near Wrexham, and the stamped tiles bear the stamp of the 20th Legion as the Legion, the 20th Valia Vitrix, so LEG-XXVV. Site features large industrial complex, tile kilns, drying sheds, barracks, clay pits operated by the Legion. This is not what I was looking for at all. These do not, none of these tile stamps refer to the word Bovium, B-O-V. So then he looked at the fact that I mentioned Cowbridge, and he found the reference to Bomium, B-O-M-I-U-M or B-O-M-I-V-M, and it's also known as Bovium, B-O-V-I-U-M. So same as the one at Holt. So Cowbridge, historically suggested as Bovium. The stamp excavations at a local Roman bathhouse sites yielded brick stamps by the Legion Augustus, marked as the Legio II Augusta. That did not answer my question. In fact, there's no information about the Bovium stamps anywhere on the internet, but it's in this book. And the reason why I asked that question of two researchers who do a lot looking at stuff on the internet is that it proves point blank that there's a lot of information that is just not on the internet available. So when people do research into archaeology and completely rely upon what's on the internet, a lot of the information is not going to be there. And a lot of the information is never going to be there. Right?
Is bovine a Latin name for cattle?
Ah, yes, bovine. Yes, you are right.
Carl, I just looked at Hathi Trust, 1886, a book on Cheshire, and it says Bovium is 10 miles from Cheshire.
Yes,
between
there's two
Cheshire
of them.
and Menjuleta.
Two of them, Diva. Now, glad you looked at. See, that's another bit of research. But this is not the Bovium I wanted, Will. This is not the Bovium I wanted, Henry. This is not the Bovium I wanted, Richard. And you are right. Hang on a minute. Let's pick up the other thing. The point, not the point you made, Will, right? Will made a valid point, but it's not the Bovium I was looking for, right? It was the Bovium in Cowbridge. So, Anne, your point, Bovium, derivative of British, B-O-U, bovine, cow, with a common prefix, the place of cows. Bovium, Cowbridge, the place of cows, i.e. Cowbridge.
Ah, there you go.
There are many Bove names on the continent. Most no doubt from Latin. Bovum, B-O-S, the Latin for cow, boss. Yeah. So all of these have Celtic origins and Gallic forms and Celtic origins from Europe, which is the right context for the word Celtic. Now, back to this, the point that was made in this book, and this book was actually This is a really nice book, and it's The Place Names of Roman Britain, published in 1981. And this is very interesting because and the other thing as well is I did not know this. This isn't even in my own book on the Romans. And the other thing as well is when I was doing a book on the Romans, I was using card records, not the internet. I didn't even get access to this. So it's published that there are 2 molded bricks with letters left in relief by a die reading Bov, B-O-V, which were actually found not at Cowbridge. They were found at another site known as St. Lythans, which was linked to the Cowbridge site, which is the site of the Roman site of Witton. And the word BOV may indicate the name of the local settlement, i.e. the local settlement is Cowbridge, Bovium, Bomium, Bovium. The point is we've got these 2 bricks. They're associated with Cowbridge and the Roman site of Bovium, and none of them found it. So I'm thinking very much that you cannot just base your research on what's on the internet in any way, shape, or form. And that's the point I've just made, because so much will never be on the internet. And most of the stuff that is on the internet is not reliable. Unless you're somebody like Will, who gets the whole text and puts them in videos, which are the original text from the 1800s or the 1700s. Unless you've got these books, you're not really looking at the facts that may be required in a publication. So I thought I'd make that point. We're going to get on to the wonderful. Go on, Will.
Just one more element. A second book.
Well, can I apologise? I did knock you then, Will. I was just making the exact research.
Right, 1836.
Yeah.
The History of Gwent is a Welsh publication. I just translated a Welsh group of words. The Romans had stationed in Wales 100 years before the arrival of the gospel. One such Roman location was Bovium, now the town of Bevered, near an old town called Caer-Urgan, or Caer-Wergon. The Roman Emperor Theodosius II established a public academy about a mile west of Bevered. So it's a Welsh publication on Harthy Trust.
Well, I'm going to need that reference. Can you just cut that reference out and send it to me, please?
I'll send you a look to the book. It's called Pyrlan Gwent Sef Hadlaw en Glinion can Iadair ar Amirwyr Destyniau gan Iolo Fad Glas.
And that's
in Welsh.
That's in Sharrigan. Well, to save me any time looking for it, just cut that little thing out and check it over to me. Bevered, that's obviously, I think, in Hereford or Gloucester way. I'm sure it is. So, interesting. Right. Anyway, let's crack on. Thank you for that, Will. Thank you. We're going to crack on, and I'm hoping that we will have news about a cinema award, which I can send. Oh, hang on a minute. Which I'm going to send Will to. Hang on a minute. You know what me and Margaret didn't do? We didn't have our chat about the film, right? Margaret, we're going to do it. We're going to check. We've got a couple of images, and I did something very naughty. I took some photographs in the cinema of the film.
Oh, did you?
I am very sorry. And guess who we've got joined? We've got Anne who's joined us as well.
Right.
Oh my God,
Christine Lowe.
Yeah. So we're nearly on double figures tonight now. By the way, I'm sweating like cobs. So
oh dear,
it's extremely hot, and right. So I'm just gonna I'd be much better snuggled up with one of the Anns. Hang on a minute. I'm just gonna try and find my images. Hang on, not there. Not there. Hang on. Where's my file? Where is it? Oh, there it is.
There he is, Odysseus himself.
Odysseus himself. Now, Margaret, can I just say something that's not complimentary, but I'm going to accuse us both of it. We've both got big gobs, you and me, right? So we cannot give away too much about the film, right? Yeah. So what I want to, and I haven't got the photographs from the film. I just grabbed these off the internet. But Homer's Iliad, right? And this is Homer's Iliad. A copy of the Iliad, was in the pocket of Schliemann as he excavated at Troy, right? And Margaret, right? Don't give too much away, but you saw Troy going up in flames, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, do you know those
Saw the horse.
No, shut up!
Oh, sorry.
You're giving too much away.
Sorry.
I told you I had a big gob. No, that's bigger than mine. Right. Okay. So the buildings in Troy, did you know, Margaret, that the buildings in Troy are actually based, the reconstructions that they used in the film are based on actual archaeological evidence?
Wow.
Now, when I've said that now, right, I don't want anyone to jump in and say, but Homer's Iliad is a fictitious story, right? However, Schliemann, right, did find Mycenae, right, which is on the main Peptali, I can't even say it, peninsula of Greece. Okay. I nearly had it then. And obviously, so that's on the main peninsula of Greece, right? And then what you've got way up in Turkey, right? Just as you go into the sort of Bosporus bit, and is it the Bosporus, and you go on to the Black Sea or whatever? And then you've got that's where Troy is on the last bit of Asia as you go into Europe. That's where Troy is. Mount Sikolich, or whatever it's called. Now that was excavated by Schliemann, and the story with Schliemann is that he actually originally destroyed the original Troy as he was excavating, because he thought the Troy was going to be like something much more grander, right? But when another archaeologist called Dolfeld joined Schliemann in 1881, they actually did find the Troy that you see represented in the film. Are you surprised by that?
Yes.
Because if you, and I know you say yes, I say yes as well, because when I'm looking at the film, it makes me start to realize that Andy made this thing about the salt water and the briny
Fresh
water
water.
and the fresh water, right? So when you think about the sirens in Homer's Iliad, and you think about islands that there's giants, and you think about and you can see about these things. It says it actually got these in the trailer. I'm only saying stuff in the trailer. So it shows islands with giants and stuff and so on. And if you break all these little things down, there's no reason to say that all of these could have some real origins, right? And you're thinking about the sirens. Well, if you go in between two rocks and people are actually playing music, right? And you're being smashed on the rocks because you're getting distracted by the music. Well, what's wrong with you? You know, that's based on some historical grounded. Whether going back to Homer's Iliad and the original book itself, this is, you know, a copy of a copy, right? You're just thinking, well, the film itself has got lots of merits, and one good thing about the film, I actually took Michelle to the film, right, and we watched it last night, and Michelle doesn't like to see gory scenes, right, and there's one scene that she said, "Oh, it's so pleased he just got killed," and she was clapping, and I just thought, brilliant, excellent. So you don't like gory things, you know. Anyway, I looking at the film, and I thought it was a really worthwhile view. And there's so many good actors in it, but
the Americanization didn't bother me at all. Just the dad bit irked, but that was all. But I mean, otherwise it'd be in ancient Greek, wouldn't it? And nobody would understand it.
It didn't bother me at all, and it would be translated. You know, it's going to be it will be translated into Greek, as it will be translated in lots of other nationalities around the world. To translate that film into Greek, right, would probably cost £1 million, right? So because they'd have to get the voiceovers of the actors and all the rest of it, so it'd be an expensive I
Yeah.
know it's expensive translating films into different languages because the stupid government that's in charge of Cymru Wales now has just paid taxpayers' money to have a film translated into Welsh, which has cost £100,000.
I know some of it was filmed on the Moray Firth in Scotland.
It was oh my God,
Yeah, it was a 1,000-year-old Pictish fort.
Yes, and Michelle was talking about all this. There was bits filmed in there was bits filmed in Africa. There's bits filmed in Greece. There was a beach scene, right? And I actually was convinced I've actually been there.
Wasn't that on the Moray Firth?
No, it was the one with all the. Were you talking about the one with all the bladderwrack? That one?
It was. No, I'm trying to think.
There was a rocky, pebbly beach scene. I was convinced that was filmed in Cyprus, but
I don't know. I can't remember.
But overall, before we get onto our shenanigans this week, what would you give the film?
I fell asleep, I'm afraid, at one bit.
What? Oh, well, it is a 3-hour film.
I missed the bit with the sirens. I fell asleep and so I missed the sirens bit.
Actually, I've got to be honest with you. That was not, that you
I missed about a few minutes. That's all.
Even though that scene cost 10 million quid to film, you didn't miss a lot.
But no, it was very. I enjoyed it. I'd say about 8 out of 10.
I'm going to go for 8.5.
Yeah.
And as I was coming out of the cinema, I was actually texting my scriptwriter for our new film, and it was like because for the new film we're working on, it's like OCD and zombies and how somebody copes and stuff. And I just said, and it was just like, well, why do we add an extra scene explaining what OCD is about? And it's like, no, we're not going to do that because we need to let people experience this in the film, So,
did you like the music? I thought that could be a little bit overpowering when it kind of kept building up to a crescendo, and it was quite deafening.
Can I just make a confession?
Go on.
Right. The Aulos, which I mentioned last week, the double ping thing flute, right? I'm gonna say it. I don't know why I'm gonna say it, right? I noticed the noise, but I didn't notice the music.
No.
And I was actually I got like to the end, and I just thought, oh my God, I'm supposed to be listening to some of the music, and I just didn't get it. I didn't get the music. It was a bit weird. But there was one thing at the end. I don't know if you stayed to the end of the credits. They had this massive block of actors on there. There was like 1,000 names on there. I thought, brilliant, that's the way to do it. And this is the way. Anyone who's in a film, they should put their name in the credits. It's this nonsense about not putting them in,
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought I'd let you into that, guys. So what we're going to do, and I thought tonight's going to be an easier one because we've got a few people away. We're going to be looking at this, and I just wanted to do some comparisons, right? And I just wanted to sort of egg this into the way things are going to go in regards to Roman era Britain. So we got some nice images, and I just wanted to tell the story. So if we start off with this and where I want to go tonight, and it's just like, let's just tantalize and sort of do the comparisons. AD 43, right? Iron Age British woman. Some women could hold power. You talk about Carter-Mantua, you talk about Boudica. And if you go over to the other side of the screen, if you're talking again, this is the early Roman era Britain. I'm not too fussed about looking at Roman world on the continent. Let's just sort of, but when we're talking about Roman era Britain, AD 43, they are very much linked to the Roman world on the continent. It's by AD 300 that things change, right? So when you think about on the left, you've got the Iron Age woman. On the right, Roman women lived with a complex legal system. Now, it's very rare in Roman society, as they're coming over from into Britain AD 43, it's very rare for a Roman woman to have a lot of power, right? But whereas in Iron Age Britain, women did have a lot of power. We saw that at Geropolis with the excavations. Yeah. So maybe what I'm going to do is I don't want to do all this now because I got a lot of text to go through. But if we go do the next 2 points. So the lady on the left, Iron Age British woman, evidence from burials and DNA suggests women were central to family, land, and community. We're not talking about, women are only good for producing babies, right? We're not talking about that at all. We're talking about the very wording there. Women are massive in regards to the British landscape, in regards to community, land, and family, right? Forget the children bit, right? They are there. But if you want to compare this with the Roman world, I think what we're doing, we're looking over the legal. So when we're not talking about the real legal stuff in regards to a British woman, because they've got this power, but the Romans actually got a set legal system, right? So there we go. Roman women could inherit wealth, could run businesses, could have property, but their husbands had to be dead, right? All the men would have to be dead in the family, right? For them to have any power at all, right? It's only when Roman women are up against no competition can they start to have power. Whereas an Iron Age woman, she can have power as if there's as many men around as there are, and we'll go to this other one here. Iron Age British women work included farming, food production, textiles, and craft, right? And warriors. That's not in there. What warrior women, right? So on the right hand side, you've got Roman women. So again, AD 43, as things are still relatively new, right? And I think the one in the middle is interesting, but we won't do that at the minute. The chart in the middle is interesting. Some of you probably already read that. Right, so over to Roman woman on the right hand side. So could not hold political or military office or vote. Right. So and if we grab in the line underneath, worked in homes, businesses, workshops, and in the countryside. But where they actually were with all of this, as things are they're tenderly starting to come into our landscape in Britain, can't really answer that until we get to AD 300, right? So I think this is a really nice sort of two contrasts, right? And yeah, there is a point I want to make just before we go on to the next image, and we will come back to this, right? Because we do look at lot with this tonight. So one thing that is not on the left-hand side is the word politics, right? Is military or voting, right? The Roman world had a legal system. It had a sense of crude demos, right? Which is basically you've got senators, they got votes, you got buildings that they stay in. You don't have that structure in Roman era Britain, right? So that's where the two worlds clash. That's where we're clashing the levels of society. Now, folks, Gina would say, Carl, are we doing archaeology or history here? We are actually doing archaeology, right? We are doing archaeology. And how are we doing archaeology? Well, let's look at this, right? We know if we look at this second point here, DNA burials, we know that women, for example, with Geropolis, they're the ones that are the society DNA providers. Those are the ones that stay within society. Those are the ones that create the lineage, right? So the wealth goes from the women's side in regards to Geropolis. We see that in DNA. We see that, and obviously that's in the archaeology. So we know from women's bones that they did farming in Iron Age British society. We know from their various, for example, their teeth. They might have wear on their teeth where they're holding a rope or in their teeth. Well, they're trying to sort of make sort of rope, or they're trying to make pendants and so on, right? I see Michelle doing it. She holds these bits of yarn in her teeth. They're going to eventually wear away in a certain way. You can probably tell that she's been involved in textile and craft, right? But within regards to Roman women in AD 43 coming into this country, right? From the archaeological evidence, there's a problem. And why is there a problem? Because their bodies are cremated. Whereas British Iron Age women, they're not really being cremated at this stage. They're being buried in inhumation ways. So you can analyze their bones. Roman women are being cremated at this stage. So the evidence is not as much there as we are with Iron Age British women. So what we're going to do, all of these images, this image is based on archaeological evidence from the archaeological record in Britain, this one. And what I'm going to do is get my notes out here. And then we're going to have a little bit of a break. I don't intend to go on as long tonight because it's very difficult for me to do this tonight because it's so hot. And yeah, that's basically it. So what I've got tonight is really a link thing. It's comparisons. When we see the evidence suggests that the Roman conquest did not necessarily represent a simple improvement in women's status for Roman women, right? But Iron Age women in Britain, it was fine. So you look at two separate arguments. So women in Britain around AD 43, we've looked a little bit about Iron Age women. This is Iron Age British woman versus Roman women, right? So it's about that status. The crucial warning is that neither society had one single experience of being a woman, right? And what we mean by that is that I don't think we can't say that with men either. What I'm trying to say is that in modern day society, Margaret could be an MP. Margaret could be anything that she likes, right? I can be anything that I like, you know. But in regards to Roman women, you're not going to get Roman women senators, right? And you're not going to get Iron Age Roman women senators in Britain because they didn't exist, right? We didn't have senators, right? So that's what we're talking about as a metaphor. So there are barriers. There are barriers. Wealth, family, enslavement, geography, social rank mattered enormously. And that's really when you look at Roman women rather than Iron Age women. So the Iron Age evidence for a long time in Iron Age Britain was reconstructed as an overwhelmingly male-dominated warrior society, right? And why was that, folks? It's because of this bloody Celtic stuff, right? Okay, let me explain this again, right? The reason why I don't like using the word Celtic in regards to Roman era Britain or Iron Age Britain is it doesn't make sense, because whenever you talk about Celtic, you talk about rugby fans and you talk about butch rugby players and you think, oh, they're Celts, versus the damnable English who are not Celts. And you're thinking, well, that's not the image I want to be looking at, right? It's not really a warrior society in Britain running up to AD 43. Therefore, it's not a Celtic society, right? But now we're making the picture a lot more clear when we're looking at our archaeological evidence. And again, we're looking at those comparisons. Now, again, I've said this, so I think can I just mention something else as it's darting in my head? I get this. When, for example, I don't know if it's on the next one. So say, for example, that was a Roman era woman, right? And she actually had gold. She had like a gold talk around her neck, and she had gold all over her, right? Say that was a Roman era woman, right? In Britain, right? A proper Roman woman, right? All that gold would be covered up. All that display of wealth would be covered up, because women in the Roman world, before it develops in Britain, in the main Roman world, Roman women could not display their.
You've gone, Carl.
The talk around their neck, if that, for example's got bronze or whatever, right? That's the difference. So Roman women couldn't display their wealth. Our Iron Age women could. So Iron Age women could apparently occupy extremely high positions within British society. And there is one thing that I would say when we get names like Carter Manjua, Queen of the Brigantes, and we get names like Boudica, right? Then we've got to ask how many male names survive through history over that period between roughly AD 50 or maybe before that, because Carter Manjua, maybe if we look at Carter Manjua in AD 43, all the way through to AD 60. In fact, there's not many male figures names that come out either, right? So if you get one or two women, 2 or 3 women, right, it's quite a nice makeup of women who've got power. So Carter Manjua, Queen of the Brigantes, Yorkshire Way, she seems to have ruled in her own right rather than merely being the wife of a male ruler. And we talked about the Carter Manjua stuff. She had a little bit of an affair. She had a little, she had somebody that worked with her, and she had her husband, she's a bit estranged from him. So her reign ceased to have been there up until about AD 69 when things started to fall apart. Boudica provides another example only 17 years after the invasion, although exactly how her authority worked before the revolt remains debatable. So we're talking about Boudica and how this all plays out. And I think the Boudica story is a bit of a red herring when we're talking about the Boudica rebellion, even though it's named after her. So, well, we named the Roman period after the Romans. It's not named after one person, is it? So the important point is, therefore, not that Iron Age Britain was ruled by women, but that female leadership was evidently possible. Whereas you don't see any female Roman governors of Britain ever, right? Not well. I'm sure we'll find one, but there is no, as far as I know. Yeah, Will, test me on this one. As far as I know, there's not a single Roman governor that's a woman anywhere in the Roman Empire, right? I'm questioning myself because my mind tells me that there was one, but Will's got to find it, right? So there was actually one Roman emperor that actually his wife was really powerful. There's a few of them anyway. But
Agrippa,
we're talking about,
was it Agrippa?
Agrippina. Oh,
Agrippina.
Agrippa.
Yeah.
Agrippa, yeah. Agrippina. Agrippina. Well, no, Agrippina was not a senator. But she held.
She was very powerful, though, wasn't she?
She was very powerful, but that's one of those, Margaret. That's one of those women in society that ate her way through her husbands and was on the top of the dung heap. Oh, and Margaret, let's not give anything away, but the thing that I really loved about the film, Margaret, was a certain animal waiting for a certain person until it died. Remember that bit?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
that broke my bloody heart. That did. It really broke my heart. That did, because I've had animals like that, and they've waited for you, and then they've died in your arms. Yeah, Michelle's had that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've gone off on one. We really have. So there is now, based on DNA evidence, based on bones reconstruction, there is now another fascinating strand of evidence: ancient DNA and burial archaeology. So what we do find, we do find cloaks and so on from the evidence and bracelet and sort of pendants and all these different things, right? Burial archaeology forcing archaeologists to reconsider women's elevated position within Iron Age kinship. Evidence from some communities suggests women could remain rooted in their home community while men moved between groups. So in other words, the men were the prostitutes of society rather than the women. The women were the ones who were set. And if she didn't like a bloke, she just go on with your way, right? I rule the roost here. Well, in fact, that's what most women are like these days, but that's not the point. This potentially gave women considerable importance in maintaining family and the community identity. That goes back to the point. That sort of family, land, and community identity. So the women are the ones in control. That does not prove Britain was a matriarchy completely, but it makes the old Victorian image of passive Iron Age women increasingly difficult to sustain, right? You know, having brave, strong women is what we're seeing with this Iron Age world. So I think what I might do, right, I might do is go to this image, and I think we'll go on to the Roman women after the break, right? And as I say, we're not going to go as late as we did the other night and night before and night before that. What would archaeology actually find for an Iron Age woman? We might have skeletal remains and DNA, and those DNA could look at subtypes within Britain's society today and able to reconstruct how the person's hair was, how the skin color was, how the eyes was, all that DNA evidence. So brooches, beads, and personal ornaments can tell us how we think about reconstructing their cloaks, reconstructing the rest of their clothes, their belts, spindle wheels, and textile equipment. Pottery and food processing equipment. One second, sorry. Occasionally, unusual rich grave goods, which we do find, give us an idea of who they were. Evidence for diet, workload, and mobility from bones and teeth. So we can understand from their teeth, the strontium on their teeth, you know, the world that these people had lived and moved around in. Settlement evidence rather than written records. So this is the problem. So what I might do is jump onto that other chart, and we'll go on to this. We'll go back to this after the break. So I think the one thing that we want to do is this chart, right? Let's maybe look a little bit about this chart. So the frustrating difference is that Iron Age British women generally cannot speak to us in their own words, unlike some Roman women did. Some Roman women did write. You know, we do have their tablets. You know, and can you remember the will the other week? That will that was found in Trallfynydd in West Wales. That was going into the hundreds, right? The will where that everything had been left to a woman, right? That's probably influenced by, you know, local society and women's power, right? So key points of comparison: political. No, start again, right? So what we've got there? We got some elite women, right? There's some elite leaders, right, in the Iron Age for Iron Age women, right? If you want to call it political power, you can. But the point is, key points of comparison: no women had any political power, right? There's talks of one or two, but none of them would have been senators. Women would have been leaders in this country in Iron Age Britain, but in the Roman world, no. So unclear in law, evidence suggests strong role in land and kinship. We don't know anything more than that because you don't have any written records of how Iron Age society really worked, except from the archaeology. We mentioned that some women could inherit property and so on, but all the men would have to be gone. There's no literal evidence. There's no literacy for Iron Age people in Britain. Elite women could be literate. That's the difference. So the other point here, based on custom and kingship, right? This is women's progress through society, how women eked their way through society and survived. Women were legally regulated in a Roman world. Those are the differences. Women would have had important roles in local tradition, right? In Iron Age Britain. Whereas in religious ceremonies, the Vestal Virgins, for example, in Rome, sort of priestesses in regards to the Temple of Mithras and so on, women's religious roles, but in regards to traditions, we're not really sure. And obviously, in both sets of evidence, what we've got, I would say this goes across the board: burial artifacts. All of them have got DNA, Iron Age, Roman, archaeology plus inscriptions and text in regards to the Roman world. So I tell you what we'll do, we're going to have a break. I got to feed the sheepies, and there's a piece of cake waiting for me as well, a chocolate cake, Anne. So there we go.
That's very nice. Chocolate cake.
Very nice. A bit of chocolate cake. Nice bit of chocolate cake. Right. Right. So, here we go. Right. Okay. Go for it. Margaret. What would you like to say, Margaret? Have you had any more thoughts about the wonderful film? Margaret will say, like I will, that we would thoroughly recommend to go and see the film.
Yeah, it's quite long. It is
3
quite
hours.
long.
We did have a massive thing of popcorn and 2 drinks
but
each.
it was very impressive. There were only 6 people in the cinema that I went to.
Ours was packed. Well, when I say packed, there were 13 hours and they had like so many screenings.
I was going to say about the literacy thing.
Yeah.
The Brits were in contact with societies that could read and write for a few hundred years. How come it just didn't why didn't we latch on to the why didn't we why didn't we latch on to it?
We probably did. We probably did, but
have the Romans gotten rid of all our writing if we ever did any?
Can I just make a comment there? Right, this is a really interesting point. Can we go up to the year 1283? Right, 1283. So 1283, the law books, the history, the genealogies of the kings of Cymru Wales, all their libraries, none of them survived. They were all burnt to bits by the English. Everything was destroyed. Their records, the Welsh royal family and what they were was all destroyed, right? It went. There's hardly anything that survived, right? And that happened in 1283, right? Now, what you've just said is a really valid point. If we had a way of recording things, then it's quite possible all that was destroyed. And then somebody could argue, oh, surely something would have survived. Well, how many records from the Roman period that the Romans created in Britain? How many of them survived on papyrus in Britain, right? We get tablets. So when you're talking about, it's quite possible that if there was any form of writing in Britain, maybe, listen to this, right? Maybe there was a tradition. As in ancient Egypt, hieroglyphics are carved. The upper language of ancient Egypt was carved into stone, right? It was placed onto pottery. It was placed onto cartouches. It was placed into all this different work, right? And it was carved into rock. That's the way hieroglyphics is created, right? That's the way things last. Maybe the tradition of writing things in Britain was maybe on slithers of wood, slithers of bark, right? And all that was just simply destroyed. You look at it. You look at it, right? You look at, for example, the in regards to the Jews in the Second World War, right? If you're caught with a book, you might be sent to a concentration camp. Millions, tens of millions of books were burnt.
Oh, you're frozen.
How many of these how many books by these Jewish professors in Hebrew would any of these have actually survived if Germany had had their own way, right? Most of it was already gone anyway. So your point is quite possible that there's a way that we recorded things that hasn't survived, and that was the tradition of recording things. Maybe the only way that Welsh or the only way that ancient British forms of writing could be written was to be on a cowhide, right? None of that has survived. It was all
Vellum survived.
Not in regards to Roman era Britain, as far as as far as I know that any examples. I don't know it. I'm probably going to be wrong, but not that any vellum has actually survived at all. No parchment, no nothing.
I know some of those tablets at Vindolanda were written by women, weren't they? Ordering dress materials and things.
The one was organising a party at Vindolanda.
That's right. Yeah.
Will you come to my party? So
it could be that they were written by local British women that they recruited to do secretarial work. You never know.
Oh, how dare you even say, oh, tut tut you, tut tut, tut tut. Well, actually, Margaret, think of the equation, right? Will's got his bloody work set out, right? But when you think about it, right, it's a question for Will, right? How many Romans lived in Italy, right, before AD 43, right? Let's have that figure. 1 million Romans lived in Rome, right? But I would say the figure's more like to be, top of my head, maximum about 15 million Roman people living on the spit of Italy, right? So every territory you conquer, what are you going to do? Chuck 1 million Romans to Britain? What are you going to do? And they're going to say, oh, well, I don't want to go to Roman. I don't want to go to Britain, right? And it's just like this whole thing that we need to think about is that it's very likely only a very small population of Britain was ever of Roman birth.
Absolutamente.
Absolutely. Bellissimo. Ciabella, ciabella. Do you know, guys, I wrote to the historian John Roma recently via Penguin Books, and I'm hoping that my letter will get to him. You know, he's still alive. He's the one who had all those television series in the 1980s and 1990s, and the last one was Great Excavations. Oh, that was absolutely brilliant. And Andy had weeks of Great Excavations when we originally did start the classes in Arnside back in 1823, 2011. So, right, okay then. Anne, anything you want to say?
Well, perhaps a little puzzled. It was a small thing, but you mentioned about the British women could wear jewellery, and the Roman women sort of couldn't flout it or whatever, and they covered it up. And you think, well, why did they have jewellery if they couldn't show it off? Really, I mean, and you adorn yourself with that. It is almost anybody who's wearing brooches, and men and as well. It's something they adorning themselves with to show off a bit, aren't they?
Hang on, my answer is quite quick. What do you think Muslim women have under those hijabs? They're not naked. Lots of Muslim women actually have lots of gold. Bracelets, chains, all sorts of things.
Yes, they do like gold. Yes, they do.
I'm not talking about the ones in this country. I'm talking the ones in Saudi Arabia. Lots of the really wealthy women.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of gold. So that answers your question in a way, Anne. Right? Why did Muslim women have all this stuff when they're not allowed to show it off? So
it just seems ridiculous in a way.
Yeah.
But Muslim women showed off themselves to their husbands. That's the difference.
Yes.
They weren't allowed to be public. They showed themselves to their husbands. They were there to get their husband's interest, not a stranger knocking on the door.
Else's, yes.
I would have happily worn a burqa in my teens when I had really bad acne.
Right, okay, fair enough. What about you, Pat? Not that you ever had acne, Pat, but anything you want to say?
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Good. Judith, what do you want to say before we have our break?
Oh, nothing really. It's just the thing about Troy. I think it's a true story. Not all of it, obviously, but I think it's based on real things. And they say there were 2 Trojan Wars.
I believe it is, and I'm not a fantasist at all, but for when you put everything together and the film is really, really well researched, and go into the level of reconstructing Troy based on the archaeological research is actually, I would argue with anyone that it's not, because it is. So that's what I thought. It's great. It's great. It's great. And by the way, do I say that the horse is slightly different from what you would imagine, and that's it.
Okay.
So, Andy, anything you want to say, love? And then Will.
No, I've always wondered why Rome treated the women the way they did, because it seemed that most of the other cultures around them didn't. So,
well, you can in that regard you could talk about Egypt had a completely different relationship with its women. So did the Etruscans. You know, when we talk about Lycia and then talk about the Phoenicians and all the rest of it, all these civilizations, Andy's completely correct. They are very, very different in the way they've been treated. And I think women in Roman society are treated very cruelly, to be honest with you.
yeah, you see it slipping in to Christianity when the Roman took on Christianity as well. You know, the changing of the roles of various women within the kind of stories within that. But and I don't kind of know where it comes, because that, like you say, all the surrounding ones aren't like that. It's something they seem to have developed themselves. So
they seem to venerate their mothers, though, didn't they?
Oh yes,
yes, that's interesting. Yeah.
Well. Agrippina, for example, that's a good example. And it's just
you wouldn't say it's matriarchal, though, would you? It's definitely patriarchal.
No.
So, yeah, definitely patriarchal. Yeah, definitely. So anything you want to say, Will? We and then we're poddling off for a break.
Right.
I might wander around the field naked for a couple of minutes to cool myself down.
3 comments. Pont de Vaughan, which was Cowbridge, became the centre of learning rather than Bovium, and whatever industries were in Bovium moved to Pont de Vaughan, which is Cowbridge. 1836, 1886 text reference. That's the first thing. Roman population, 30 BC, 1 million citizens. In Octavius did in AD 30 something a census, 4 million plus Roman citizens, not occupied individuals, not other nationalities, etc., etc. So again, you had a small number of actual Romans with power.
It is small. Yeah.
Relevancy to, I always consider Rome a matriarchal society, not because the women didn't have power as politicians, but the women had influence on their husbands and the women had influence on their sons. And in that right, they were able to manipulate and direct the politics of the country. The men in the positions, the men went to war. The men had to fight. The women stayed at home. They ran the house. They ran the estates. They kept the place going. They controlled the slaves. The men went off to fight. The men went to gain more riches for Rome. The women stayed at home. I always consider Rome a matriarchal society, not a patriarchal society, even though the men were the primary politicians. That's my take.
That's an interesting take on it. It definitely is. Definitely is. Anyway, thank you for that, Will. So we're going to have a 15-minute break. I'm going to have a quick drink. I'm going to have a bit of cake. I'm going to chase my sheep around the field naked, and I should be able to do all that in 15 minutes. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.
Okay. Right. I got most days to walk. I do exercises in the morning, just in that, or at some point of the day. I usually do around. Hoo-ha. Bouger. De bouger.
Are you okay, Anne? How are you doing? How are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm all right. I'm looking up some Spanish words.
Oh, Spanish. You learn to speak
I'm-
Spanish.
I've just started. So it's a good thing to do in your old age, to learn a new language. Keeps your brain going.
It does do that, yes.
So I'm having a go at Spanish.
Oh, very good.
Not very good at it yet. Well, I've only just started it, so I'm very slow though, because mainly I'm so poor at doing the digital. It has to be done. I'm very slow at writing. You know, I can write quick and then I find it's all rubbish, or I have to go very slowly like that and I can get it right. So it's all very slow.
Are you going to a class?
Very well either, because I've got hearing aids. So
are you going
I can read and write it.
Are you going to classes or are you just learning yourself?
I'm doing it online.
Is it the Duolingo?
That's right. Yeah, somebody recommended it to me, so I'm having a go.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm not expecting it to go very far. I didn't really want to bother to learn to read it because I can't imagine. I've been to Spain quite a lot, but I can't imagine I will go there again. I haven't got a passport or anything. So, and of course, the older you get, the more expensive it is to fly or anything like that. The insurance.
Oh, for the insurance, yeah.
Ridiculous. So I wasn't planning that, but I thought if I could learn to read and write it, it's something I could.
Yeah.
You know,
well, you can come up here and we'll have conversations.
Right. Well, I don't think I'm ready to do conversations yet, but I'm getting there slowly but surely. I'm learning.
Good for you.
And you can speak Spanish, can you?
Well, we lived in Minorca in the Balearic
Yes,
Islands.
yes,
we lived there for 5 years.
Yeah.
And my daughter lives in Mallorca.
Yeah.
But do you know, I've forgotten an awful lot.
Well, you do if you don't. I mean, mind you, I did German O level when I was about 50.
Yeah.
I did it in about 12 months.
Did you?
Got a decent grade.
Well done.
And I used it about twice. And then because I haven't used it, I can't hardly know a word of it anymore. And yet French, which I used or learned over 5 years and was much younger, I didn't know level for that. But years later, I could hold conversations with French people.
Oh, what gosh.
Not with, I'd lost all the grammar, but I could make myself understood and remembered enough words to, have a little conversation going. Yeah. Whereas the German went very quickly because I'd learned it very quickly. I was that older, I suppose.
Yeah.
Retain it.
Well, my son-in-law is Spanish.
Yes.
So when I go over there, he wants to improve his English. So we have an hour in the morning. Well, he's been off work. He broke his ankle. Yeah. So the last time I was over, he was at home working from home. And we would have a coffee in the morning and have an hour's conversation in Spanish and English. And it was very useful for both of us. But I find I can ask questions, but if they answer very rapidly, I only understand the odd word.
Yes, that is the problem.
Yeah.
Most of us would speak too quickly. I think most people do, in whatever language they're in.
Yes.
But if you're not familiar with that language, you just can't get it. It's quick.
Well, he said to me, he said, "Can you get a cup from the cupboard?" But he said, "It's not a cup, it's bigger than a cup. What do you call that?" And I said, "That's a mug." But I said, "You can also call somebody's face a mug." so many words have lots of different
Yeah,
meanings,
not
don't they?
actually same meanings.
Yes. Yeah, but he says English he thinks is probably a lot easier to learn than Spanish because of the feminine masculine thing in Spanish.
I
Ours is a
think
little
English
bit.
is probably harder in
Do
many
you?
ways from others because you've got the Spanish is a Romano one. It sort of clicks with a lot of the other European languages.
Hmm.
It's kind of a mixture of Roman and German, and we have such a range of that increases our number of words, which means the
Yeah.
same thing because we were built up from a different base. That's how it seems to me. I think it's, and lots of people do find it difficult. I just suppose because it's so well spoken everywhere,
Yeah.
it's easier to get at as
Yeah.
you know.
What languages do you speak, Will? Are you French, Welsh, English? What else are you?
No, I speak a smattering of Welsh, a little bit of French. I've looked at German, I've looked at Spanish, I've looked at Italian, I've looked at Greek, I've looked at Latin, and I'll have little words that pop out in my brain from time to time, but I won't be able to hold a conversation. I can barely get by in French, and
Yeah.
but no, I like language. I've always studied elements of language after I left school, not while I was in school.
Mm.
And certainly in elements of research, I look at stuff.
Yeah.
So that's it really.
Do they still teach Latin in schools, do you think?
I think in some places they do. There
Yeah.
will be in some, because again, you've got to look at up until the mid 1800s, Latin was still quite predominant in literary reviews.
Well, it is
A
in
lot of the
law and in religion, isn't it?
well, that's
Still.
again, yes. If you bring yourself forward to the 1960s, Latin in the Catholic Church, in particular, and most of the stuff that was. There's an interesting comment in The Two Popes, the film. If you're familiar with the film The Two Popes, Anthony Hopkins and
Yeah.
Jeremy Price.
Yes.
One was the Bishop of Argentina, and the other one was Ratzinger. Anthony Hopkins played Ratzinger, and the comment that Ratzinger made was, "When I have to deliver bad news to the clerics, I speak in Latin because only about 10 or 20% of them understand." So again, there's a relevancy to that, but
Do you
English has
remember?
become predominant because it is a convolution of multi-languages. And when you go, the fact everywhere the British Empire, Indian words have entered the English language, Asian words have entered the English language, Japanese words have entered the English language. So
Scandinavian.
it's like a sponge, exactly. It sucks in everybody, and at some point society adapts a phrase or term of phrase for various reasons. So whereas other countries want to keep their independence, Wales wants to keep its language, but there are very few actually Welsh-speaking people in Wales. So you get the same problem. You might have the same idea up in Scotland if you're on the borders when you think of the Scottish National Party want to retain some of that Scottish heritage. Great things because there's a thread that takes you back through history. And if you can understand the earlier language, you can understand the intonation and the growth of populations and
I think the problem
societies.
is languages do die when populations get small. They do die, and in a sense, most people, for instance, people who are not attached to Wales, wouldn't bother to learn Wales because it's not a language which would take you very far in the world, would it? You know what I mean?
Well, that's true.
Because because it's small, and if it was bigger, it would be much more widely spoken. And I think that's. I mean, I had a house in Wales, and my neighbour, she loved the Welsh language. She used to try and tell me the names of the Welsh flowers. She said they were all beautiful names. So
yes,
people love the heritage and poetry, which can't be easily changed into another language. People are very fond of keeping that kind of thing going. But as I say, for a language which is not widely spoken, it's hard to do, I think.
I used to work for a gentleman who was learning Esperanto.
Yes.
Back in the 60s. It was meant to be the
universal language,
the world communicating Esperanto, and he was in a group that learnt this, but you never hear of that anymore. I think that's died a death, isn't it?
After it. It's a pity there can't be a sort of, I suppose the trouble is everybody loves their own language. But
yeah.
Wonderful if there was a world language.
Well, I guess it's English, isn't it?
Well, no, because not everybody in every country can speak English because they're learning their own language. I'm saying if you could have one language and every baby learned it, from it, then at least
people
there'd be some complications in the world, wouldn't it?
Yeah. People are more likely to learn English throughout the world and have done for the last 150 years.
Yeah.
If you go back a couple of centuries, French became the language of court and the language of documentation. And then before that, of course, then you had Latin, and Latin held mainstream up until the 1500s, until Henry VIII and the fall of the papacy in England.
Well, that's right. All of that was very good, but it was still only the elite that used it in most places. If the whole world could learn a language, could decide on like it could be Esperanto, it wouldn't matter what it was, and every child learned it from babyhood. You'll be able to talk to each other well, and diplomacy would be much easier, wouldn't it then?
But it's about the level of education of people, and most countries do not educate their people very well, no matter how well the school system is. England, the United Kingdom is atrocious in its education of the younger people of,
it is.
Of all ages. All right.
Yeah.
But it's atrocious. If you look at the fact now, if you want to deal with China, you have to learn Mandarin. If you really want to get in line with the Chinese and do business with China, you have to learn Mandarin.
Yeah.
And this is the point: the language of the country, of the dominant element, promoting itself throughout the world, and that's where we go.
English
is universal in its way.
Can I mention this point? You were talking about Welsh, for example, right? If my Welsh was A1, right, you would be probably talking to a top class Welsh film star at this minute, right? I'll be able to bag every single role. I'll be all over the place, right? But nobody else on the planet's going to see any of that stuff because nobody can understand the Welsh language.
Yeah.
they are desperate for Welsh speakers to take part in big events like the Eisteddfod, to become members of the BBC staff. But there's not enough people out there. There's not enough people who know Welsh, and that's a big shame. But I know this. I know this.
In one sense, it's a shame because the variety of languages are very interesting. But in terms of world understanding, I think if we could all speak or decide on one of the languages, even if it was Chinese, whichever one it was, it wouldn't matter. We'd be just all understand each other.
Yeah, exactly. I just think I'll be able to do this class, and anyone on the planet would be able to understand what I'm talking about.
Maybe it'll happen one day.
Absolutely.
I've got a Nigerian film crew as part of the next film, right? And they're already filming stuff, and the problem is that even though they speak English, there is a communication problem, because they say things that I don't understand, and it's just like, a universal language would be good. Guys, we've got to crack on. So I've
read that AI are beginning to decipher cuneiform writing,
and it's very, very, it's very, very possible. Exactly.
Actually, one element, Carl, I did some AI inquiries in the last couple of days to ask Will Georges to see what AI finds out about me. and he was quite responsible. I actually did it 10 minutes ago about Karl-James Langford, and I'll paste it and I'll send it to you because you'll be interested as to what AI sees as your profile on the internet.
Oh,
is it all positive?
It is positive, yes.
ah,
And it covers your various functions, and from your acting career to your archaeology. It's Google AI. It's quite composite, and I think it's very accurate. I've even asked the Google AI to interpret some of the poems that I've written and give an impression of what the poetry says, and it gives something positive response.
But there is one thing I really appreciate you saying that. There is one thing that I will say is that you know, I have seen AI try to make films. They are really, really bad. You know, as soon as you get an AI film, you can tell it's AI. There's something not human about it, and you know, I remember in the cinema saying to Michelle, I said, that sea that you're seeing on the screen, that is real sea. That
oh,
boat
real.
that you're seeing is actually
Yeah.
a real boat. Those
Yeah.
actors, all those people on there are actually real actors, right? Even those people who are dressed up in armor to be taller than the other actors, right? That is a realism in the film, right? You couldn't do that with AI. You just couldn't. So, right, let's crack on. We've got the last bit to do, and I don't know how far we are from getting this next bit done, but we'll just see where we go, and let's see what's happening. So, let's go there. There you go, and there. What are you looking at? Are you looking at my little chart, my comparison chart?
No, it's just a black screen at the moment.
Are you looking at the comparison chart now?
Yes.
Right. So we got to get back into where we were, and hopefully we can. But I think what we've been talking about a lot about literacy and the survival of records, and define what literacy is. That's one point that I didn't make, and what we're going to do now, we're just going to thread on to where we left off, because I think we're an important point. The important point was that we're struggling with Iron Age people in Britain being able to speak to us, whereas Roman women are able to speak to us because, as you pointed out, the Vindolanda tablets, as you pointed out, Roman women status in Roman society. But then things change, because what we're interested in is not the Roman world. We're interested in the Romano-British world. We're interested in the Roman world in Britain. We're interested in what was happening in AD 300. And as you can see, there's a Roman British elite woman on the screen, and there's a Roman British woman on the screen. Is the Roman British woman on the screen a Roman person who's become ordinary? I would say yes. And also Iron Age women that have become as they've been, and so on. So it's a bit of a mix in society. So in other words, we've got sort of different levels. So let's just go on to, so we're thinking about, yes, the DNA. We're thinking about looking at these people. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at some of these types of images, and maybe this image would be a good one. So a Roman woman. This is not a Roman woman of AD 43. This is a Roman woman of AD 300. So what I need to do is maybe get that image up. Maybe looking at that reconstruction. That's based on an actual reconstruction of a Roman woman of somewhere around AD 50 or somewhere like that, so AD 43 onwards. So Roman women lived within a much more explicitly documented legal system. I think that's one thing that we've been struggling to sort of say tonight. So Roman women could own properties, we know, and inheriting, and we've got wills. But one thing that we do see in regards to the legal status of marriage, so a Roman woman could own property and inherit wealth, particularly under forms of marriage in which she remained legally associated with her birth family. Now that's an important point. What we're talking about, a Roman woman had basically a structure to inherit, rather than an Iron Age woman in Britain just being able to be self-important, being able to be part of society, which would be a bigger part of the society that she's not necessarily born into. But an Iron Age woman could become anyone that she wanted to in Iron Age society. But Roman woman of birth in AD 43 in Britain was a different kettle of fish. It's almost as if you're born on one side of the bed sheets as an Iron Age aristocratic woman in Britain, you had a lot more status than being born on the other side of the bed sheets as a Roman born woman who would have had less status, less power than an Iron Age woman. So this is what we're clearly looking at. So Roman public political power, as we've been discussing, overwhelmingly male. And I think the point that Will was making about a matriarchal society in Rome and how things functioned, maybe it's as Will was saying, it's a lot more complicated than that. You know, on the surface, it is massively patriarchal within the Roman world. Women could not vote. They had no right to vote. Elites could vote. Male elites could vote in the Roman world proper. And this is another point that I should have made earlier on. I didn't make. When we're thinking about this, the Roman political and military officers, you wouldn't see Roman soldiers who are women, right? I don't know any example. I might be wrong, but I don't know any example that I can immediately talk about where you've got a woman who's a soldier in a legion, or you've got a woman who's a soldier as an auxiliary. I've got no examples to talk about, right? But you've got female warriors, female important people being found in burials within Iron Age Britain. So there's the difference. So the formal machinery of the Roman state was controlled by men. That produces a wonderful historical paradox. So look at this. The writer, Pliny, Cassius Dio, Tacitus, all these people, Julius Caesar. A Roman observer could regard Rome as vastly more sophisticated than Iron Age Britain. And why? Well, it's more sophisticated because in the Roman world, men are in charge. In the Iron Age world, women are in charge, so it cannot be sophisticated. Do you see what I did there? The Roman world simultaneously encountered societies around their borders, and some of you guys were talking about that, in which a woman such as karl-james, when we go to Britain, could exercise a type of overt political authority that an elite Roman woman could never have, or was near on impossible. And that's interesting. And why is that interesting? Because when we're talking about the likes of karl-james and we're talking about the average everyday nobody, right? This woman could in fact be karl-james slightly down the line, and the Romans would respect her for it, when in fact the Romans could not have women of high office in their own society. There's a paradox there, a huge paradox. Indeed, Roman writers describe descriptions of powerful British women needing handling carefully, precisely because they were writing through Roman assumptions about gender. So in other words, those writing history were writing the story and not really understanding the power of women in Roman era Britain. So back to these little charts again. Let's go back to that chart again. Let's go back to this lovely chart. I like my charts. I like these. So when we sort of want to do, and we'll go on to AD 300 in a few moments, with the comparisons again, we've done the comparisons, but leach into this really, let's do some conclusions on this. So Iron Age women could be rulers. Roman women were just excluded from office. They couldn't even get near the chains of office. So that's the difference. So property, right? The Roman world, there is some sense of inheritance. Some women could become powerful in the Roman world and could have property, right? When we look at Europolis in regards to an Iron Age setting, the women automatically were the ones in charge of the home, right? That was the inheritance, right? Whatever was happening to the men, the women were in charge, right? So there's no sense. It's a different order of understanding. We've got things written in a legal sense for the Roman world. The Iron Age world was a meaning of understanding. Like, you guys understand that you've got to turn up to my class every Tuesday, otherwise you'll be in great trouble, right? You understand that, but none of you guys haven't got any contract in place with me, right? But in the Roman world, you would have a contract in place with me to turn up at these classes or else tonight, right? Margaret, beware. I'm going to turn into a Roman patriarchal despot forcing you to turn up at my classes, right? We're doing this in the Iron Age way. We're just turning up because we want to turn up. So there's a big difference, right? So this point that we made before the break, Iron Age women, there's little evidence that Iron Age women were literate, right? Every evidence to say that Roman women in Roman era Britain were literate, right? Now, or is that true about Iron Age women in Britain? Very little evidence of them being literate. Now, describe literacy. That's the point. William was describing literacy. We're not as literate in Britain as we could be in, if you want to compare it with Spain, and William's right. However, I think literacy is more about understanding rules, understanding how society's structured, writing things down if you need to. Don't write things down if you don't need to. That could be another way of looking at literacy, right? Now, Roman women in regards to marriage, because of inheritance and the boys and so on. This is why Agrippina had to get rid of certain males in her life so she could inherit the estate, because it would automatically go to the male unless a contract was written in. Now, in regards to Iron Age women, how is that documented in the sense of an Iron Age woman and a man or a woman giving themselves to each other in marriage? We don't have those documents surviving in regards to Iron Age women in Britain. So I think when we look at religion, the Roman world, women were massively important in religion in the Roman world. In Iron Age Britain, it's possibly possible to look at religious association and religious worth and involvement of women in Britain, but we haven't exactly got there yet. However, when we think about religion, there's one big thing to say about this. Women were massively influential in the cult of Christianity. There were women priests. Women were an equal part of Christianity until it became male dominated, right? And that's out of what I've just said, women being important in religious doings in regards to the Roman world. We've got lots of burial evidence in regards to both Roman era women and Iron Age women in Britain, and here we go. Like many things, what we do find is women in regards to ordinary women, right? In Iron Age Britain, how women in the lower quarters of Iron Age Britain were they as visible as Roman era women? Yes, they probably were. So when we conclude at this bit, and then we're gonna crack on now in a moment, but let's just look at lots of these reconstructions from burial evidence. This was actually quite a famous one. This is actually a British example, reconstruction of woman. You can look into her eyes, and do you know what? I know a woman who used to look like that completely. She used to come to my archaeological excavations. She used to look like that. So very native Iron Age looking woman. So the Roman conquest brought Britain a society with far more written documentation of women, but not necessarily a society offering women greater political power, right? So you can take that one way or another. Roman society had to amalgamate with how women are to be in society. And then we go to part 2, women in Britain around AD 300. So that's where we're going to go next. Let's crack on. That's how a woman's going to develop in Britain. That's how she's going to look. So, and you can see that there's a change. So that's an amalgam of a Roman woman and an Iron Age woman. And there she is, AD 300. And this is how she's going to document from this figure to having wealth, having this. So let's look at this now. So Iron Age British women, oh, hang on, wrong thing. Here we go. Roman British women elite, Roman British women ordinary. I think what's being said here, and if we want to spell this out quite simply, right? What's happened is, instead of Iron Age women having that status in Britain in AD 43 and Roman women having not as much status in AD 43, all this is amalgamated to become what we're seeing on the screen, right? So what had changed after 250 years or more of Roman rule? This is potentially the more interesting of what we're doing tonight.
So
by
will
8300,
Cartimandua look more like the Romano-British woman than the, on the left, the elite woman? Would Cartimandua have looked more like her than the one on the right?
You've thrown me on that one, because you've thrown me on that one, because what you may have done is you may have assumed that Cartimandua wants to be a representative of the Roman world when she's around in AD 60, right? You're presuming that, but maybe she was as powerful enough not to look like the woman on the left, and maybe more looking like, let's go with that. Maybe Cartimandua more looked like the woman on the left there, right? Maybe that's what Cartimandua looked like. In AD 43, because what you're presuming, what you are presuming is that Cartimandua wanted to look like the woman on the left. Maybe she didn't need to look like the woman on the left, but maybe she wanted to look like it. We don't know, but I would say that she's the other example. That's what I would argue. So by AD 300, we shouldn't really be comparing simply Roman women versus Iron Age women anymore. And also, do you know, when we were looking at Fishbourne and we were looking at Braden, and I said in sort of 30-40 years, people wouldn't have known what it was like before, so they had always assumed it was that way, right? So maybe if you want to look at it this way, people in Britain after 250 years always assumed that Iron Age women always looked like this, and the lower classes always looked like this. But that, obviously, as we know, is not the case. So the descendants of Iron Age Britons had not disappeared. Their society had changed. That's the point. A woman might live in a Roman villa in Somerset, a town house in Londinium or Verulamium, a farming settlement in Wales, or a community associated with the northern military frontier. We mentioned that. One of you mentioned the Vindolanda tablet. Her clothes, jewelry, food, religious beliefs, and household possessions might combine local and Roman traditions. And Margaret, how would you know by 250 what is actually a Roman tradition and what isn't? You're not going to know it. You're not going to know the difference between what it was before and what it was after. So Archaeology now gives us much more. By the later Roman period, women appear through burials. Magda, can you remember beginning ages ago in this? We basically said we're struggling to look at Roman era women in AD 43 coming over. They're being cremated, so we can't really see if they did the heavy work and stuff, right? But now everybody in society by AD 300 is actually got an inhumation burial. They're no longer being cremated. Some people are, but most of the bones that we see tell us of their ages, their disease, their diet, their trauma, geographic origins. We're getting an idea from the archaeological evidence. If we look at this, examples of the gold that we actually see on here, so much of the later stuff, and then we've got this, you know, we've got glass, we've got beads, we've got some more local objects, you know.
Would they not have had a choice in whether they were cremated or buried like we do today?
I think the choice is not a legal choice. I think the choice is a mental choice.
What if it was a religious choice, Carl? If because Britain was becoming Christian, the idea was to bury the body, to rise again, not to burn the body.
But Will, we're still looking at AD 300. That's not become a law in Britain until roughly about 390. So we're a little bit away. Will's right, but Will, the point I'm trying to make is not a legal condition to you know, it's what everyone was doing. Everyone was burying their dead, right, rather than cremation, and that's what become fashionable. It's what the Joneses did, right? Whether you were Christian or not, this is the way it's going to go. Yeah, and Will's right. By AD 390, everybody's got to be as an inhumation burial. Nobody's to be cremated anymore. That's correct, but we're still in AD 300. So when we talk about what we're talking about, it's overall the evidence is mixed. We've got these objects that you know, some of this is going to be native British. You know, the shale bracelets, for example. You know, some more of the bone bracelets and so on. And you're talking about the glass, which is a typical Roman thing, and you've got some writing there, and you've got some amber and all these other things, and the gold. So we do have lots more inscriptions. We got inscriptions that we see. Sometimes we actually recover women's names and family relationships, religious objects, and what we've got there, we've got some kind of a name enshrined on there as well. And domestic archaeology, villas, farms, urban houses allow us to investigate women's economic and household activities. So by the time we get to looking at this chart, right, this very chart here, everything seems to have come into one. There's also an extraordinary change compared to Iron Age Britain. So before AD 43, what we are now seeing up to AD 300 and beyond, right? There's a big change after AD 43 to AD 300. So instead of not hearing the Iron Age voice, we are now hearing the Iron Age voice. You said the Vindolanda tablets. We are seeing a certain sense of literacy, right? There's Claudia Severa, invitation to Lupicina Lepidina. This is talking about Vindolanda tablets from around AD 100, includes a personal section apparently written to Claudia's in her own hand. So women are actually writing things down. Claudia might have actually been, who was Claudia? Was she a Roman woman? Was she a native Briton? So that's something unimaginable before. But there is one thing I would say, guys, right? Writing out personal invitations to things and parties is a typical Roman thing to do, but it might be something that caught on amongst normal Iron Age women who had actually married Roman soldiers. But this is very interesting, right? This is very interesting. It's probably going to be more difficult to put across, right? So we'll see, right? Now, we're talking about everything being equal, right? This is a Roman British elite woman. this is a Roman British woman who's ordinary. However, right, there were still women in Britain, right, who followed the old order still, right? And the old order were the ones who still followed the order of the Roman world rather than the Roman British world. But that pressed aside, some of those women in Britain who had taken off the shackles of Rome, who had actually come from Rome, in Britain could live a completely different life than they lived in Rome itself. Some Roman women who were born of Roman class from the Roman world, some of those millions of people that Will mentioned who'd come over to Britain, could basically claim, right, hang on a minute, that woman over there, right, we're in Roman Britain, she's an Iron Age woman, look at the wealth she's got as the woman on the left, right? I, as a Roman woman, deserve the same level of standing, flaunting my gold, right? So in other words, what happened, if you came to here, you might be able to be seen as rich and as elite and with as much power as a Roman British woman had. Now, that's very important. That's the thing that changed, right? So women were becoming enormously wealthy, villas, landowners, the military elite. I'm not saying that you would have had, you know, they would have married into the military elite. No, the women wouldn't have been military elite at all, but they would have married into the military elite, back to the sense that the powerful women would have influenced their husbands who were in the military elite in what's going to happen in society, which is a point that I think Will was making, but this was more akin to what was going on in our country rather than Rome itself. But there you go. On the right, nothing's really changed, right? You're always going to have women at the bottom of the pile, right? The poor laborers, the enslaved women, you're always going to have these at the bottom of the pile. That distinction is fundamental. A Roman British woman could possess jewelry, servants, fine pottery, imported foods, and substantial property. A poor agricultural woman living perhaps only 20 miles away could inhabit an entirely different world. I don't think nothing's changed there. But I think what has changed is that Britain has lumped all of its, of all, we've got two classes. We've got extremely wealthy, whoever, wherever you're from, and then ordinary British women on the right there. Something else had changed. By AD 300, there is no equivalent of Boudica or karl-james ruling a large British people. So what's happened is this. Even though women had power, right, they couldn't have that extreme power. Where karl-james and Boudica existed before the AD 70s, having immense power as karl-james had, Boudica leading her rebellion in AD 61. We don't see a female figure like that by AD 300. So Roman society had in fact allowed women in Britain to become powerful, but not too powerful. And I think that's the point being made. The tribal political structures within which those women had exercised authority before AD 43 had simply been replaced by Roman administration. That gives us another intriguing conclusion. When would women ever get that power back again? Not until Queen Elizabeth, and not until the likes of Queen Victoria, which is a bit of a shame because women had a lot of power once. An interesting conclusion could be made. Romanization may have expanded certain economical, legal, cultural opportunities for some women, while simultaneously removing the political system that had permitted exceptional Iron Age women to become rulers. No matter how powerful a woman was in Roman era Britain, right, they could no longer be as powerful as Boudica or karl-james. That is much more interesting interpretation than saying Roman women had more rights. There may have been an equal understanding, as I've said, but that equal understanding would not go any further. So we'll go on to this little chart before we finish, but let's sort of do some comparisons. If we go to these charts again, if we go back to where we were at the beginning, where's that chart? Oh, there it is. Actually, that girl looks like my daughter. Never mind. Right, one of them. So AD 43, AD 300. Around AD 43, archaeology gives us Iron Age women embedded in local kinship communities and tantalizing evidence for powerful female identities and even queens. In comes the Romans AD 43. What changes? By AD 300, women are much more archaeologically visible within a Romanized society. There's more writing, there's inscriptions represented through jewelry and burials, participating in commerce, religion, and property ownership. But the great female tribal rulers vanished. And this is, I think, if you come away from this lecture thinking the main thing that Roman Britain changed was the absolute power of women until the likes of maybe Queen Elizabeth I, or you could look at the likes of maybe King Stephen's wife and King John's wife with what was going on in the medieval period, right? You're talking about Matilda and those figures, and there was great powerful Welsh female figures, right? But not many, not would stick out, not those that would stick out and rule specifically over the country, right? So when we think about this, we'll just look at that chart before we finish tonight, actually. But I think one thing to go away from today is, did Rome improve women's status in Britain or simply change the ways in which women could possess power? That is the question that I'm putting to you. So what I'd like to do finally is, if we go to that chart there, it's 928. So, quite an interesting looking woman by AD 300. Maybe this is looking out over Carinium. That looks like the Carinian landscape, Cirencester, and obviously burial evidence and lots of this. And if we go to that, and there's something, there is one other thing I want to show you before we finish tonight. But so if we look at this, go through this chart here, Roman British women, we're talking about they could be wealthy Roman or Romano-British families. So we've said that. Could own large properties and estates. We've said that. Lived in villas or towns with servants and luxury goods. Yes. We see their names inscribed on burials and sort of there's writings, the Vindelander, and we got that will at Charles Fynydd from West Wales, the property is going to go to a woman. And we got burials with fine jewelry, glass, and imported goods, participating in religious benefactions and local life. But they still could not be those great leaders like Cartamandua. Glass, inscriptions, gold bracelets, brooches. And if we go over to here, and we got that big question. There we go. Maybe you guys can discuss that at the end now. We'll go on to that one in the middle in a moment. So Romano-British woman, ordinary. Why don't I personally, right? Why don't I use that term Romano-British more than I should use it more. Why don't I use the word Romanization, right? I feel uneasy with using the word Romanization. I feel uneasy with using the word Roman British because, in essence, lots of these people remain Iron Age, but just become Romanized a little, right? So I've cut my own words in two there. So these Iron Age ordinary people, whatever, lived in villages, farms, towns, worked in farming, food processing, textiles. Get that in the archaeology. Fewer possessions than a rich woman, but they had them. Burials with simple jewelry, everyday items. Life could be hard. Class and status matters as much as gender. But then again, life is always going to be hard for most people in society anyway, and nothing has changed. So pottery bowl, spindle wool, simple brooch, glass beads, but Yeah, that's not too bad. A lot for an ordinary woman. And when you think about that, same with the man as well. So the two things really is that if you want to compare the status of a man with an equal ordinary woman on the right, it's a similar lot. On the left, the difference is that women in Britain could no longer fight. They could no longer be those great leaders. That's what's happened on the left. So it says there, women are more visible in the archaeology. Literacy allows some women to write. We've got that, Vindelander. More economic, sort of talk about legal opportunities, wills, and so on. Traditional structures, tribal structures are gone. That's the big change. Status is shaped by class as much as gender. Huge differences between rich and power. Nothing much changes there. So that's why we'll call it a night tonight. But I just want to show you one other thing, right? Yeah, this is something that we are rolling out down here. People who are concerned about archaeological monuments and feel that they could record structures like scheduled ancient monuments and send in reports to, say, English Heritage or Cadw in Wales. We're starting to do that. We could have an equal form for you to do the same in Cumbria. I'm sure Heritage England, it is Heritage England, not English Heritage. Heritage England would probably be delighted if you're going out to sites which are scheduled protected ancient monuments, letting Heritage England know what's going on. But we can have a discussion if anyone wants to go out and do that type of stuff. But we've got a sheet that we can actually send you. So there we go. All part of archaeology community, doing your bit for archaeology. And we've got some people on board doing this very job right now. On that note, right, we're gonna call that a day. And here we go. Where are we? Right, stop the sharing. Sharing is caring, but I'm gonna have to stop the sharing. Right, so okay then, let's have your mugs online, right? Okay then, I can't see anyone's images now. Yes, I can. What we'll do, we'll go with the with Will. What do you want to say, Will?
Simple aristocracy, the develop of power and wealth, the brightest and the most powerful. Women in the later 300s, 400s, 500s, they were utilized as matches to other powerful families. So again, patriarchal society, the woman became the glue that joined families together, gave more power to one family over another family over another family.
Yeah. Bring them together, yeah. But women were stopped from being the power brokers, and
that's right.
I think this, Will, one of the interesting things is that you never hear about a Scottish clan leader who's female. I've never heard of one, but no. you do hear about important, powerful women in Ireland, vaguely in my head saying something. In Wales, we've got, if your name's Gwenllian, right, you're a queen, right? And you're a very powerful queen. There's several examples of that in Cymru, Wales. But then when the Normans then are controlling Cymru, Wales, after 1283, the same thing happens as happened in AD 43. Those powerful women are no longer appearing in Welsh history, right? Because it's that old system of this Iron Age world where women are powerful figures in Wales that's finally extinguished. Right. And again, and actually, Will, right, at the back of my mind, it's almost as if women disintegrate within Welsh society after 1283, because I'm really struggling to come across a single woman in my head that had any major power because their power was distinguished. Yeah, it's interesting stuff, that. Anyway, anything else, Will?
That's it for me.
Right, okay. Andy, babes.
No, nothing really to add to that, apart from just at that end of that period in England. Of course, you got Eleanor of Aquitaine as well,
Yes.
so, who was spectacularly powerful, but still as the wife, even though she was a queen in her own right.
Yeah, exactly. And that it's like I've obviously, you know, the campaign of it was Matilda and Stephen, wasn't it?
Matilda, yeah.
Yeah, Matilda in
She should have been the
1130
queen.
in 1136. No, she wasn't a queen. She was empress. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
She was an empress. Now, the thing is about Matilda is that she was not so much fighting to be king. She was fighting to make sure that the right leader was on the throne, right?
Exactly.
And so she, and that was that was coming like from a Norman type of thinking, right? Not an Iron Age British thinking, right? So if she'd been thinking like, I'm going to become queen, I'm going to become leader, I'm going to. It's an abhorrent idea, Margaret, for having that in medieval England, for a woman to have any level of power when in fact women did have that power many years before.
Well, I guess all the philosophers, all the teachers, the priests, all the people in power were men. I mean, even women who were archaeologists, authors, they couldn't write or do anything in their own name. They had to be, it had to be a male name to be believed. And that's until quite recently.
One thing,
Can I just say this? Had to write as a man? Was it one of the Brontes or Jane Austen? Her first books, were they written as a man?
I think I can remember.
Yeah. Woman.
Did what?
George Eliot.
That's right.
It's when you one thing, can I use one expletive tonight, right? Lloyd George. No, that's not the expletive. I can use one expletive. What really pees me off so much is that when we talk about Tessa Wheeler's excavations at Verulamium and Tessa Wheeler's excavations at Maiden Castle and Tessa Wheeler's excavations at Killeen, right? It's always, we mention Sir Mortimer Wheeler, right?
Oh, yes.
Tessa Wheeler was the one who was at these excavations while Sir Mortimer Wheeler was swanning off around the country. She was the one doing the work, but it's because of her association with Sir Mortimer Wheeler that he's the one who got all the credit. And that really pees me off totally. I would love to know, there's no comprehensive sort of figure in regards to understanding Tessa Wheeler, right? And she's not as powerful as Kathleen Kenyon, right? But equally, Tessa Wheeler's as powerful as Kathleen Kenyon. Kathleen Kenyon waltzed across the world doing her own thing, but you could say, I'm going to say something terrible. The only way Tessa Wheeler got where she was because of her husband. That's absolute nonsense. That is total nonsense, because Sir Mortimer Wheeler would not have done the work if it wasn't for Tessa. I've gone off on a tangent there. Sorry. Anything else, Andy?
Yeah, I was it just made me think about actually kind of there have been points in our history where leaders have been elected, right, rather than hereditary, and at some point it became hereditary and only male. Right, which is interesting as well, because other ones were chosen because of their skills and abilities, if I remember right. Yeah. So I kind of thought, when did the bloodline thing become, and only the male bloodline become an issue?
Yeah. But obviously, as Andy's talking about the fact that it was the female bloodline that was important in Iron Age Britain, right? Yes. And then it became a male bloodline. Yeah.
And we got the Romans to thank for that too.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have the Romans to thank for that, because it was the male bloodline thing. I think what we're saying, right, what we'll do, we'll give the women a few scraps over on the left, and hopefully,
keep
right,
quiet.
that'll keep them happy. Now, I'm gonna, Andy, I'm gonna put a punt out there, right? I'm gonna put a punt out there. Maybe one day, right, in the next few years, somebody's gonna come up with a really important female figure in Roman era Britain, right? Who had power, right? And you know, there's something in the back of my mind. Hang on a minute. I've got it in my head, right? I read it really recently, right? There was a Roman emperor whose wife led a Roman legion, right? And I'm just trying to think of the life of me. It's there. There's one emperor's wife actually had her own legion, and she led the legion into battle, right? It's there in my head. I've got some dates and figures, but I just can't get it out. But in regards to Roman era Britain, I'm pretty sure, right, something will come out in the wash. There's got to be, because to be honest with you, there's a dark ages in Roman era Britain. 1 minute goes to written stuff, right, and the next minute it all goes coddly boop, right? When we should have loads of records, right?
Yeah.
We know more. Listen to this, guy. We know more about Roman era Britain, right? From Julius Caesar to roughly Agricola, right? That period. We know more about that written wise, if you ignore all the inscriptions later on. And things start to get a bit fuzzy. They start to get a bit hazy. And you're thinking, well, why is that, right? Why does it get more hazy? And I've said this before. Why does it get more hazy when we get to the AD 400s? And the AD 400s is closer in time than the AD 100s. But there's less written information in the AD 400s than there is in the AD 100s, right? And this really gets my goat. By the way, we've gone off on a total tangent. Anything else, Andy?
No, thank you.
Right, Pat, anything from you, babes?
No, I find it very interesting. Good to hear about the women for a change.
We're going to up the women. And do you know what? I'm feeling, I get these feelings in my bones, and I'm thinking that there's something that needs to come out, right? Remember, 50% of the population is women and 50% of the population is men. 75% of archaeologists are women now, when in fact, years ago, it was like the other way around, right? There's women running archaeological departments. There's whole women archaeological departments out there, and it's just like, right, and it's the women who are then, and women historians like Bethany Hughes, right, the first real TV historian archaeologist. I saw her this morning, on something. I thought Bethany Hughes, not Alice Roberts, Bethany Hughes. She was the true. The true. So these people are bringing this stuff out, and it's just that very interesting area of history that with the slowly but surely things are coming out, but they're not coming out fast enough. Do you know, I do say that women have got many rights as men, and they're respected as men, blah blah blah, and you see them in different levels, but sometimes maybe there's a bit more that can go towards women equal in society, right? I look at it from a blinkered point of view, because I'm in one of those professions that on film sets there's as many women as there are men, and in archaeology there's more women than men, but lots of other professions have got a long way to go, and I'm sure Andy would agree with that. So,
but women are less likely to get ahead in business and things because of maternity leave. I think we should be more like Scandinavia, where they do have the fathers taking the same amount of leave as the women. So the men here are always going to get ahead and get the top jobs because of that.
But because it's the system, that is the point. Many men want to be at home. Many men want to be at home looking after their children, but they don't have their opportunity. It's given to the women.
No.
Yeah.
They do in Scandinavia, apparently.
This ain't Scandinavia, love.
They allow it in Canada as well.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, that's the way it's got to go. For women to get the top jobs.
No, it should go that way, but it may not. Things are moving in peculiar directions at the moment.
Well, it's going backwards in some places.
I'm glad Drina's not on. She'd be right off on one now. Right. Okay, then. I think we've done Will and Andy and Pat. I think we have. I'm getting lost now. We done you, Margaret? No, yeah.
I think so.
Right.
Think
okay.
so,
Let's do Anne and Judith, and we'll call it a night. Go on, Judith. Anything you want to say, love?
Nothing really. Thank you.
Judith,
very interesting. You did, however, say a name. What was it? A Welsh lady's name, Gwen something.
Gwen Clean. Gwen Clean.
Right, okay, that Gwen sound. You know what I'm going to say, but I'm not going to say it.
Gwen Clean. Gwen Clean.
Yeah.
G-W-E-N.
What does that mean? Do we know? Is that it's white hands or something? Is that
Gwen Clean? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your homework. It's your homework for next week.
Oh, great. All right.
If you type in Gwen Clean on the end, right, you come across a number of Gwen Cleans, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting name, really, in regard to Welsh history, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And then finally, we've got Annie. Oh, I don't know what I've run to the other Anne. She turned up and she went. I think, yeah. I got to tell you this before we ask Anne, right? We've got, with my production company, right? We've got a WhatsApp group, right? And we got this guy called Frank. He's a member of my casting team, right? Anyway, this other guy called Frank joined the WhatsApp group, right? And the one Frank had umbrage. He said, "There's only one room for one Frank on you," and the other one took it seriously, right? He said, "Well, we can't have two Franks on this group, and I'm not going to be taken seriously because my name's Frank and he can't be called Frank." And they had a big row and one left.
Oh, could have been Frank 1 and Frank 2.
That's what we did. The one who was Frank 2 didn't want to be Frank 2. He wanted to be Frank 1.
It's very frank.
Change it to Frankie or something like that.
Oh no, he didn't want to be called Frank. His name was definitely Frank. And the other Frank didn't want his name shortened to Frank because it was Frank. So right, okay then. Anne, anything you want to tell us?
No, thanks very much. I enjoyed it.
And somebody was trying to convince me today that Anne Frank
a bit about women, because I think it's something you very rarely see tackled, do you? The women's power. It's not something I don't think I've ever heard discussed before.
I wanted to do it tonight because it felt the right time to do it. It's like I was thinking, oh, maybe I could look more into animals next week, you know. You know, we could look at Roman animals and Roman plants and be thinking, for God's sake, Carl, can you just get on with the layers from the burning and just get that out the way?
Is there sexism in the animal world?
Yes.
There is, isn't there?
Yes.
Well, if you look at my sheep, right, they all gang up on the man, and it's like,
well, the lionesses do the hunting, don't they?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And black widows, they eat their partners.
Yum yum.
That's the female eating the male.
God. Hey, Margaret, just as an idea, we're developing the idea about the Caligula film, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's all you've really put the bloody coracles up there, right? So if we ever write into the script that we need somebody to go down and sit in some of the fens and just jump into a coracle and just see how it works on the fens. I got the ideal woman, Margaret. She'll do it.
That me. I might be able to jump in one, but I doubt I'd be able to get out again at my age.
And also, one last thing: has anyone been ever to Buckler's Hard on the south coast?
No, know of it, but I've not been there.
Right, Buckler's Hard. I went there as a reenactment parade soldier with my musket shooting everybody, right, years ago. And it's these nice little old sort of Georgian sort of buildings, and they've been doing a Buckler's Hard excavations, and they've been finding the shipwriting sort of timbers and all the rest of it. And I thought I'd mention that. We did a video on that. So anyone watching my YouTube stuff will know this week we did look at the archaeological excavations at Buckler's Hard this week. And we're just putting updates onto the YouTube channel about today I did one about the Boyne Valley excavations. We did that today. So it's all out there.
But Butler's Hard was where the Navy was made, wasn't it? They made a lot of big fighting ships.
Andy, I sat down trying to work that out the other day. I thought, was it possible?
Yeah,
you know?
It's astonishing because you nowadays you expect big dockyards and all the rest of it. They just built them on the bank.
Yeah,
and it's just brilliant, and of course it's miles from the sea now as well. Yeah.
I sat down trying to work that out, Andy. I really did. How? Same question. How did they build? How did they build small brigs? Let alone warships. You know.
Well, most ships were built.
Were there any ever seafaring women?
Yes.
Oh yeah, lots of female pirates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What seafaring women were there, Andy?
I can't remember the names now. I read a book on pirates recently, and there was 2 or 3
pirates then.
Well, if there were pirates, they had to have learnt their skills somewhere, so there must have been other. There's an island called Spetsis, which is very near Athens.
Yes.
And the lady there is called something Bubilalis, but she's called Bubalina, right? And she took over her husband's freight business, shipping business, when he died, and was very successful. And she somehow managed to arm her ships, probably for their own protection, of course, in those days. But she went into, I can't remember the name of the battle, but it was a battle that turned the against the Ottomans, and the Greeks were fighting, they were rebelling against the Ottomans, and she took her fleet in and won the battle and was a hero because of it.
She was actually a woman.
She was a woman, a very capable, and a very little woman as well, only about 5'4".
Oh, they're the best ones, aren't they?
She got shot by one of the locals because they didn't like the wedding that was going on with her son and daughter or something like that. After all that, after saving Greece, they shot her.
Yes.
But Andy, that's Greece.
Yeah. It is exactly Greece, yeah. But extraordinary woman, and that's just one little lady from one island, you know.
What was the status of women in Greece?
I don't know, because that was Ottoman, so that would be Muslim. So I don't know.
I mean, in ancient Greece.
I wonder whether that's where the attitude came with the Romans came from. Greece.
I think it might have done, don't you?
Yeah. But certainly the Watsits.
What do you mean the Watsits?
The Trojans, the ones that used to throw the kids off the cliff. The Spartans. The Spartans, yeah, they were very male orientated.
Yeah. I think it goes further back than the Romans, Carl.
Yes, yeah. Well, so it could be the Greeks that we could thank for that. Yeah.
And don't blame the Greeks.
Well, they preferred young boys, didn't they, by the sounds of things?
Well, yes, and Zeus was the leader, wasn't he? And he was supposed to be male of the gods, so it was a male leader. As soon as you've got a male leader, you've got a problem. So.
Yeah. Oh, Carl's choking.
Is it the same? You know, when if the Spartans like little boys, is it the same as women like little boys? I just can't work this out.
No.
Yeah, but nobody ever says anything about that, does it? Because they weren't allowed to.
What women like?
This is the written history is because it's male. So.
Yeah.
We'll never know whether women like little girls or like little boys because they didn't talk about it.
What the freaking hell's going on? My head's going. My head's. Is this the same as me being in love with with one of my teachers in school who was a woman?
No, that's normal.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about. Oh God. Sting when he sings don't stand by me, that one there. Sting in the Police.
Yeah, I know.
Don't stand so close to me, that one, right?
Oh, he was a teacher, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a teacher. And I'm thinking, Was that based on a real experience
Yeah, I
with an
bet it was.
18-year-old girl?
Yeah.
Oh God. How the hell have we gone down this line? Right, okay. On that note, anyone else got anything else they want to say before we finish tonight?
No, no, thank you.
Don't
Mary
forget
Beard go on.
I was going to say, don't forget the solar eclipse tomorrow night.
Oh, right. Between 6 and 8.
Yeah, peaking about 7.
Oh my! Between 6 and 8.
It's
Yeah.
also
Teaching
the Perseid
Yes.
meteor
Yes.
showers tomorrow night.
Yes, they start tomorrow night as well, or peaking tomorrow night.
Well, it's the peak. It's already been going on since the end of July, and it goes on for about 15 to 21 days.
We'll missed
fabulous.
the last lot because of bad weather.
And apparently there's going to be 12 seconds of no gravity. So in that case, we're all
That would be
dead.
fun. Yeah. Just
1
tie
second
yourself
of
on.
no gravity would be serious, but 12?
12, yeah. Yeah. Just have to tie yourself on.
I'll tie myself to my sheep.
No, something solid that's fixed.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sheep
Fair.
gravity will affect the sheep as well.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true.
Even ancient ones.
Even
Yeah.
ancient sheep. Oh, Borere sheep, yeah.
Yes.
Shocking.
I hope it rains soon for your sheep.
Oh, it's absolutely horrible.
It must be. How,
It really is.
How are they? How are you all coping?
We're having gallons and gallons and gallons of water brought in every day. It's going out. We're having to water the trees now as well.
Yeah, we've lost some trees.
Yeah, it's bad. So yeah,
it makes you wonder how it's affecting the crops down south as well. The agricultural, commercial crops, because even the apples in the orchard in front of me are getting ripe now, a month ahead, and they're small because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is our rowan berries should be usually due at the end of September. They're due now, and we've got hawthorn berries that are usually due by the end of October. They're already going off now, and so we're going to have birds without food. It's going to be terrible.
All the insects are going to be buggered up as well. Yeah.
They've had fires in Canada, haven't they, Will?
Yeah, big ones.
Yeah, they've had quite a number of fires, but that's typical. But the fact is, because communication is so extensive now, you get to know about fires and the multiple fires. There've always been fires, but it's more prominent. But it's also the same as in Spain, Italy, France.
I know, everywhere.
Parts of Britain.
The Cairnthorns,
and again, Carl and I love to have a debate on global warming because I have a different take on that. So
yes, I'm with you.
Another day.
Yeah.
Hey, I tell you what we should do. We should have a YouTube thing on that one day. That'll be good.
You'll have to read my book, Carl. Read my book.
Read your book, and David, Professor David Bellamy's Manhattan Declaration. Where it's all, yeah.
But what about Doggerland and the great big tsunami and all of that 8,000 years ago? And there was no human intervention then.
There was alien intervention. It's just the same thing.
What about the Roman one?
Graham Hancock tells us that.
Yeah. The point is you have natural cooling and warming of the earth in cycles because you have nuclear activity at the core and you have a change in the polar orientation. So that also affects the polar tilt, but it's more than 8,000 years because it goes back a few 100 million years. And these are parts of cycles that we can relate to, but it's more in depth than that. So you're not going to get a mini analysis on that, unfortunately.
Not tonight.
And sun flares, solar flares, and
Well, right, guys, can I just warn you, right? If you can't get on next week because you're all blind, right? Because you've watched this, right? I warned you, right? It could be Day of the Triffids by next week, so don't look at these solar flares.
get your weed killer
actually
out.
Last time in 1999 when we had that, well, there was a total eclipse in Cornwall, wasn't it?
I remember it.
A lot of people ended up in hospital because they looked at it through that without protection. I couldn't believe that when Karen was telling me that. I thought, surely they weren't that stupid. Everybody knows you don't look at the sun. But
we
apparently
looked at
they
it with
did.
a paper. We were standing with it, looking at a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I seem to remember.
Excellent. Yeah. Pinhole camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent video. Yeah.
Shocking. Yeah, well, Day of the Triffids is coming. It's there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great.
And by the way, with this meteor shower, if
Yep.
do we ask, you know, every time we see a meteor, do we have another wish?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So in other words, everyone's going to win the national lottery that day, and they'll all have £1 each.
Yes. There's no point. There's no point getting a ticket because it'll be spread out with everybody. Yeah.
Right. Okay then, folks.
we go.
Anything else anyone wants to say before we go?
I'll say good night to all, and I'm off.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Talk to you later.
Good night.
We'll say good night.
Bye,
Anyway,
Will.
Bye,
See you next
bye.
week.
guys. Good night, Will. Good night, Andy.
Night.
Good night, Pat, Judith, and Margaret. Good to have you online.
Bye
Bye.
all. Bye, Pat. Good to see you again.
Good night.
Bye bye. Thanks,
Nice
Carl.
to see you, Pat.
Bye-bye.
See you next week. Best of luck with your relatives. Night, night, guys. And there's Judith. They're all gone. Flippin' heck. That was quick. 10:01. Don't think there's any comments online. There weren't any comments online. So there we go. Thank you for watching tonight. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Gwelwch chi eto. Iawn i chi. And there. Sheep's eating all the bloody food. Anything in the chat? Gone on for too long tonight, but that's live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da chi. Gwelwch chi eto. 9, 9. Done, 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 done.